You're tuned in to the Tithing Hoax podcast, where we offer teachings, commentary, and insights about false tithing doctrines and the prosperity gospel. I am your host, R. Renee. Thank you for joining me. And today's topic is a woman's tithe causes a firestorm on Twitter. And we're going to find out why in just a moment. In the meantime, today's podcast is sponsored by the Tithing Hoax, exposing the lies, misinterpretations, and false teachings about tithing. Inside this Amazon best-selling book, you'll discover the truth about tithes the church doesn't want you to know. Free yourself from the tithe deception today. Get your copy of the Tithing Hoax on Amazon.com and wherever books are sold. Okay, let's get into today's podcast. A woman who tithes to her church caused a firestorm on Twitter. Now, this is about a Nigerian lady, and she posted something in response to the people who criticize her for paying tithes. And basically, in a nutshell, I'm going to tell you what she typed. Well, let me tell you what she said. She said, "I work for my money. I get paid. I decided to remove 10% for God and spend the remaining 90%, right?" And then she goes on to say, "How come the logical conclusion of why I am poor is not what I do with the remaining 90%, but the 10% that I gave?" So I'm going to deal with the first part of her comment. And basically what she's saying is, look, y'all really need to mind your business. I work for this money. I made this money. And I can do with it what I want to. So if I want to give 10% of my hard-earned money to the church, that's my business. Why are you concerned about it? Mind your business. I handle mine, you handle yours. Okay? So that's an interesting point. So that's something I'm going to come back to. But I wanted to also share some of the comments from people who responded to her or left her comments. For instance, one person said, "Well, why give 10% to the church?" And they have church in quotes, "when you can use that 10% to take to a hungry child off the street." Okay, that's what one person said. Another person said, "By giving to God, you mean you giving it to the pastor." Okay. And another person says, "Yeah, but does the 10% actually end up where God wants it to be, or does it end up helping, quote unquote, the men of God live a more luxurious lifestyle? Does that 10% have to go into a church pocket before it counts as a tithe?" Okay. So those were comments from some of the people who were critical of her paying tithes. So she raises an interesting point, and the critics raise some interesting points too. And so those are their comments. So let me share my comments and what I think about this whole situation with this woman paying her tithes to the church. Now, we also have to keep another little bit of context because, again, this lady is Nigeria, and I take it she lives in Nigeria. I don't know that for sure, but I think it's safe to presume she's in Nigeria. And in Nigeria, the prosperity gospel is widespread. I mean, it is off the chain in Nigeria. At this point, the prosperity gospel may be more widespread and more mainstream than even here in the United States. I'm not sure about that, but a lot of reports that I see and hear about what I hear about what's going on in Nigeria, those prosperity gospel preachers are just off the chain, honey. They're off the chain. So you have, and people know this, and they know many Nigerians are being exploited and being taken advantage of by these prosperity gospel preachers and by this prosperity gospel doctrine. So a lot of people are very outspoken about the topic of tithing because, again, with the prosperity gospel, they really push pay your tithes, and God's gonna make you rich, this, that, and the other. So I wanted to give you that framework and give you that little bit of background to put all this discussion in context before I go further. So here are my thoughts about the situation. You know, number one, yeah, it's her money, and she does have the right to do what she wants to do with the money. If she wants to, give 10% of her income to the church, that really is her business. Now, let me say this. I don't know anything about this woman. I don't know what church she belongs to. I don't even know if she follows a prominent prosperity gospel preacher there in Nigeria. That I do not know. But in all fairness, I will say this. It's possible that this woman belongs to a church that may be doing the right thing with the tithes and offerings. Let's keep it real. Every pastor or preacher is not low down. Okay? Every pastor and preacher or every church is not exploiting its members. Every pastor or church is not using the tithes and offerings in ways they should not be using it. They're very, there are pastors and churches that are accountable to their members. They are transparent with their members. There are churches and pastors who actually take the money that they collect from their congregation and they do use it for various forms of ministry, such as various forms of outreach to help those in need. So let's be mindful and not put let's not paint all pastors and all churches with a broad brush and say they're all are scammers, all of them are just out for the money, all of them are just living off the people, and this, that, and the other. They're all just scamming or taking advantage of congregations, because that's not the case. Now on this platform, yes, we highlight pastors or preachers who are definitely stealing tithes and offerings and stealing from the congregations and who are exploiting, but everybody's not doing that. So again, let's be objective and be balanced in our views before going in on people who are paying these tithes, because if they belong to a church that is doing the right thing with the money, then I can understand why this tithe payer is supporting their church and supporting their pastor in the ministry. If they're doing the right thing, okay, well, have at it. Continue to support the church in the way you see fit. And if that's quote unquote tithing or giving 10% of your income, so be it. So we have to keep in mind, we don't know what type of church this woman belongs to and what this church is doing with the money. So let's not assume that she's being exploited or she's being taken advantage of and she just don't know no better. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to say about the situation. Now, another thing for believers, because who know the truth about tithes, here's the thing: when you know the truth about a thing, whatever that thing is, whether it's about tithes or something else, there's something, of course, in you that wants to speak the truth and spread the truth. You've been awakened and enlightened, and you want to share that. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to share that with other people who don't know what you know. Okay? And we're here to speak the truth and to share the truth, absolutely. But you also have to, keep in mind, we have to understand, and understand that as important as the truth is, and we know it's the truth that will set us free, that no matter how many Bible verses within context that you share with tithers and give them every biblical reason and every biblical fact why they are not required to tithe, we must understand. There are just going to be people who aren't going to receive the message. They're not going to receive that truth. I don't care what you say. You can talk to them until you're blue in the face, and they're not going to receive it. And keep this in mind. If we look at Yeshua HaMashiach, aka Jesus the Christ, and how he prepared his disciples for ministry and going out to spread the gospel. He gave them instructions. He prepared them. And when you read the parable of the sower, that's what the parable of the sower is about. When Yeshua is preparing his disciples for ministry, he's like, look, when you go out and spread this gospel, keep in mind, because the seed that is spread is the word of God, that like a farmer who spreads the seed, right? The sower who's spreading the seed, that some of the seed is going to fall on rocky ground. Some of the seed is going to fall on fertile ground, and so forth and so on. So the different types of ground, refers to the different types of people and their ability to receive the word. And they're going to be people who are going to receive it. It's like, oh wow, I didn't know. There are people who are going to receive it, and they may roll with it for a little while and go with it for a little while and then revert back to their old practices. Well, I'm just going to go back to tithing because I know that's what I've been taught all my life. I don't know about this. And, and there are people who are just going to reject it. It's like, hey, you ain't got to pay this tithe. You think, oh, this is good news, and it should be good news. But even if it's good news, ask Yeshua, you better ask the disciples, just because it's good news, which is what the gospel means, good news, it doesn't mean people are going to receive the good news. The people who just reject it. And it doesn't make sense why people would reject good news, but it happened then and it will happen now. And so what did Yeshua tell his disciples? Like, look, just you go from door to door, if people don't want to hear it, what did he say? Dust the dirt off your sandals and keep it pushing. And that's all you can do, just keep it pushing. So sometimes I'll say this, I don't think it's the best practice to go back and forth with people. I don't care whether it's social media, online or offline, with people. When you recognize somebody is just not there and they have a lot of resistance to the truth about tithes, to me it doesn't make sense to go back and forth with people like that. Don't cast your pearls to swine, as they say. Dust the dirt off your feet and keep it pushing. It's like, oh, okay, well, you do what you do, but I'm just sharing. But it is what it is. And so and what I'm going to say next piggybacks off what I just said. When it comes to sharing the truth or speaking the truth, you have to speak the truth in love and with wisdom. And keep in mind also, like the book of Ecclesiastes says, which is one of my favorite books of the Bible, there's a time and season for everything, and there's a time and season for speaking the truth and sharing the truth. And let's keep it real. Sometimes when people get a hold of some truth, and they just want to scream it out, off the rafters, off the rooftop, and they want to get in everybody's face. Sometimes that approach can turn people off and turn off the people you're trying to reach. And sometimes when folks are equipped with so much truth, if you're not mindful how you present that truth, yes, you can be passionate about it, because I get passionate about the truth. You should be passionate, I think, about the truth. But you have to kind of be mindful how you approach people, don't share your perspective, who don't share the truth that you have, don't have that truth that you possess, if you're not mindful of how you approach them, you actually turn them away, and you can also come across as being very critical and even judgmental. Yes. And that's not how you want to be. You don't want to come off as being critical of them, and you don't want to come off, definitely don't want to come off as being judgmental. Because I'm going to tell you something, because that Pharisee spirit can rise up in someone who knows the truth, even though you know the truth, you got the Bible backs you up, and what you're saying lines up with the Bible, but you have to be mindful. It can be a slippery slope, and you can become a Pharisee in the way you approach people who may not have that truth and may not be where you are in your spiritual growth, and where you are on your journey, and where you are on your kingdom walk. So you have to keep that in mind, because you can end up doing more harm than good and turning people away from the truth instead of attracting them to the truth. So, you know, and that's something I wanted to say too. And so those were the main things. But, and there's one more thing. In her comment, she talked about being poor. Don't assume that I'm poor because I give 10% to the church and I keep the 90%. And basically what she was saying is that, have you ever considered that maybe, quote unquote, the tithers and the people who are tithing are broke, not because they're paying the 10%, is because they don't know what to do with the 90% that they have left. And so that goes to the whole issue of, I'm not down with the whole tithing doctrine, but let's keep it 100. In some cases, people are tithing because they are under the influence of the prosperity gospel and that whole indoctrination. They think that just by tithing, giving that 10% of whatever they have, is going to get them to a place of financial prosperity that's going to break the back of poverty off them, that it's going to break, it's going to cause them to break the bondage of debt and this, that, and the other. And it's not. And they're wondering, like, well, okay, why am I tithing still broke? Because the bottom line is, look, if you do not know how to manage money, I don't care how much you tithe, you still going to end up broke. Tithing is not going to help you if you do not change your mindset about money. If you don't develop wisdom in how to manage money, if you do not know how to be a good steward of money, I don't care what you tithe, it's not going to help you. So she does talk, raise a valid point there, and I heard this one preacher say one time that people don't have money problems, they have a wisdom problem. And a lot of people broke, I don't care how much money you have, a lot of people broke because they do not know what to do with what they have. And unfortunately, some people think, within the body of Christ, all they have to do is just pay tithes and everything's going to work out. No, if you do not have good financial stewardship, if you don't change your spending habits, if you don't know anything about saving money, if you don't know anything about investing money, if you don't have just solid basic financial literacy, people just don't understand and don't have a mastery of money. And they think tithing is this magic bullet that's going to solve their money problems. And it's not, because they don't have a money problem. They have a wisdom problem. Or they have a money management problem. They have a spending problem. Sometimes to improve your condition in life, your financial condition in life, you may need to get better education. You may need to get a marketable skill, a skill where there's a high demand, where you can get a job and and that with that can double, triple, or even quadruple your current income. So there are things, practical things people can do to improve their financial situations. And oftentimes in the church, people are not getting the practical things, and they're not being equipped with practical knowledge for improving their situation, and they're just relying on the tithe to be this magic bullet that's just going to solve all their financial problems, and it's not. And that's why one of the reasons why people remain poor. There are people who don't tithe, and guess what? They're broke, busted, and disgusted. So we can't always blame, in other words, a person's financial lack on them giving 10% to a church or a pastor. Okay. Because, again, there are people who don't tithe at all, and they're still broke, busted, and disgusted. Yeah, okay, so anyway. So here's the question for you. And please leave a comment. Would you reach out to a tither on social media and share the truth about tithes? Would you reach out to them and say, hey, you don't have to tithe. Tithing is a false doctrine, and this is what the Bible says about tithing, blah, 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 blah. Would you reach out to that person, the tither, or would you just let it alone and say, hey, it's their money. If they believe in tithing, if that's what they want to do, that's on them. I'm going to mind my business. How would you approach a tither on social media or offline? Or would you even approach a tither? Would you say something to a tither? So would you reach out to them? Or would you just say, hey, let it alone, let them do what they want to do? So let me know. Or have you already done this? Have you ever reached out to a tither, and what was the response they gave you? So let me know. Leave your comments below. And also, before you leave, like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, this is your girl, Renee. I thank you for listening. And until next time, be blessed.